if Taiwanese students complain about forgetting a lot, it's good. It's an advantage. Intuitively, it sometimes feels like you're making less progress because you feel the struggle. But everything in learning research points to this is desirable. So if you struggle remembering something, it is a sign that your brain is only write down where you struggle a bit in understanding and rephrasing it in your own words. If you already know that, or if it's just something you can look up easily, I wouldn't put in the effort in writing it down. And I think for most people who are very excited about a new note-taking method, they try to write everything down. They try to build a personal Wikipedia. That is impossible.
Hello， 大家好，我是志祺，欢迎回到强者我朋友。你会不会常常也觉得自己买了一堆书，上了一堆课，但看完没有多久就发现自己好像学了就忘掉，什么都记不起来？就算是辛辛苦苦做了笔记，要用的时候也常常找不到，最后就变成在玩一个买书买课的游戏，花了钱，但好像没有什么效果。到底要怎么样做才能够有效的学习跟做笔记呢？今天我们邀请到了一个重量级来宾，卡片盒笔记的作者 Sonke Ahrens 老师一起来聊聊。Sonke 呢是德国教育哲学学者，多年来钻研学习还有教育方法。他最有名的作品呢是2017年出版的《卡片盒笔记》，在全球已经卖出了超过20万册。这本书呢本来只是给学术圈的学者用的理论，但后来呢从矽谷工程师到各种类型的知识工作者都大力的推荐这套学习方法，甚至还被发展跟应用在 Heptabase 还有 Obsidian 的等等的新型笔记软体上。可以说这几年呢，只要讨论到学习方法、笔记工具的话题，几乎是绕不开卡片盒笔记法的讨论。那我们今天呢，就要来问问他，要怎么样跳出读了就忘的问题？所谓的卡片盒笔记法到底厉害在哪里？要怎么样让自己的学习更有效率呢？不过在开始之前，先让我们进一段工商服务时间。你听过全球风行的卡片盒笔记法吗？德国学者 Sonke Ahrens 的这本畅销书帮助过无数知识工作者学会高效吸收跟输出。这次他和 SAT 知识卫星推出了一门深刻艾伦斯的卡片盒笔记思考术线上课，手把手教你打造个人知识管理系统。课程呢还会独家的教授建立笔记关联的思考方法，从零开始建立卡片盒系统，还有学习、工作、创作、研究4大场域的实际应用。现在到课程的官网输入专属折扣码，还能够享有专属的优惠，赶快点击资讯栏连结过去看看吧。那一开始就请老师先跟我们的观众简单自我介绍一下吧。
My name is Sonke Ahrens. I'm pleased to be here, guest on your show, Shasha. Thank you for having me.
那因为您是这个笔记方法的专家，就是我们准备了几种台湾人常见的笔记类型，想要请你现场的可以帮我们诊断一下，就是这些笔记方式有什么样的问题，然后你会怎么样改善跟建议呢？那第一种是我们荧光笔满满的课本。
First of all, I'm not here to judge anyone's note-taking or highlights. The first one seems to me like someone is new to a topic and finds a lot of information interesting and relevant and has probably not yet reached that stage of understanding where they can narrow it down, filter, take the gist of it, and that's totally fine. That's a natural first step. But I think it's necessary to remember that it is only a first step because you haven't really done anything with the content itself. And the magic happens when you start engaging with what you're reading and think about possible connections and think about what it means in different contexts.
那第二种呢，是我们精美条列式的笔记本。
I think the second one is really an example of beautiful notes, and they have value in itself because it's nice to look at. And you also see that the person who has taken the notes has engaged with the material. So they've drawn themselves, they have written by themselves, and the next step, if you want to go from there, would be to see how individual pieces of information within that would connect with something completely outside of the context you're taking it from. And that could be your own questions. That could be a project you're working on where the outcome is more than just the reproduction of the input. There is a great study that compares handwriting during university lectures and people who use their notebooks. So there are two groups. One was only allowed to take handwritten notes and the other one notes with a keyboard. And The first difference is those who used their laptops gathered a lot more information because they were quicker. The group that relied on handwriting struggled a bit, so they felt they are not capturing enough. They are getting behind. They didn't like it that much. But when you tested them a week later on what they retained, it was, of course, the group that has written the notes by hand that was way better in giving the gist of it. Because what seems like a disadvantage, slowing down, not being able to capture everything, forced the students to compress the knowledge in a few sentences. So they had to think. It forced them to think. And what they've written down was the condensed content of the lecture. So there's a magic to handwriting, which has nothing to do with it's closer to the brain. It's like there are disadvantages that actually turn out to be advantages.
我们接下来想要更深入的谈谈就是怎么做笔记这件事情，因为在台湾学生时代我们其实很习惯就抄笔记，那我自己当然会觉得它导致了我们出社会做笔记的时候也习惯做得越全越好，但用起来常常会觉得有遇到一些问题，所以我们搜集了一些台湾人常见的学习或者做笔记的问题，想要静婷等一下帮我们解答一下。那首先就是第一个，就是很多人常常会有一个困扰是阅读的时候做了一大堆的笔记，但是做了还是记不太起来。那你之前会有这样子的困扰吗？面对这个问题我们要怎么样去处理呢？
Yeah, I mean, of course, I experienced that. But I think we shouldn't try to remember everything. It would be a very practical problem. I mean, there are stories from people with brain damage who lost the ability to forget, and they remembered everything. And the problem is they don't function in life anymore, because they get overwhelmed by memories and information. So forgetting is really important. If Taiwanese students complain about forgetting a lot, it's good. It's an advantage. If you don't have that ability, you have a problem. But of course, we also struggle with remembering things we want to remember. Intuitively, it sometimes feels like you're making less progress because you feel the struggle. But everything in learning research points to this is desirable. So if you struggle remembering something, it is a sign that your brain is actively engaging with the content. So it's better to wait a little bit before you repeat a text or go through a text again until you have forgotten it, so you do struggle with remembering, because that's the moment where it's being encoded properly. There are many examples of these desirable difficulties, learning researchers call them, like spaced repetition. And that's basically don't repeat it right away, but wait a little bit longer. Or interleaving, mixed topics. Feels weird to jump between topics, but it's often the differences that make you remember something. So learning curriculum that's too structured, where you go from one piece to the next and only progress if you have properly learned one part, feels like it's the right thing to do, but it's probably a wrong thing to do, because it's better to mix it up a bit, to jump ahead, to go back. This kind of interleaving is something students often don't like, but in the end, if you test them, they learn much better than the one who went through it one piece after another. And the most important thing about all is understand what you're reading. So you really have to question the text, and you have to test yourself in some form, because unless you test yourself, you don't know if you understand what you're reading. And writing, just taking notes, is the simplest, tiniest, easiest form of self-testing, because just by trying to give account in your own words, you kind of notice if you understand something or not.
那最后一个痛点，我觉得其实是很多人的困扰，其实就是懒得做笔记。就虽然知道做笔记很好，但是做笔记就是蛮累的嘛，然后也很花时间，所以就干脆到了最后就用脑袋记就好。像我们做一些新闻专题的内容，资料量非常大，不可能一个一个做笔记。但是要用的时候又觉得我好像明明看过这个资料，却怎么样也找不回来，只好重新看一次。那针对这种问题，老师会有什么样建议的解法吗？
Yeah, totally agree. It is important to take notes on everything. And that is why it's most important that you filter properly, that you only write down where you struggle a bit in understanding and rephrasing it in your own words. If you already know that, or if it's just something you can look up easily, I wouldn't put in the effort in writing it down. And I think For most people who are very excited about a new note-taking method, they try to write everything down. They try to build a personal Wikipedia. That is impossible because it's too much information we're dealing with. I would restrict note-taking to thinking, to everything I need for a current project I'm working on where I want to connect dots, material I work with, material I really need to think forward. Everything else probably doesn't need to be written down. Be more selective in what you write down, but take seriously what you write down. The second is, if you have a good system, it reminds you of notes you have probably long forgotten. Don't build your system around your brain, so it has to remember where you put something. That is what most people do in old school folder structure, note-taking, that they think about categories first. And when they write a note and want to store it, they think like an archivist. They think, where do I put it? Where does it belong?
Just want to be more organized.
Yes, and you can organize a lot, and you put a lot of effort in organizing. But I'd suggest to think from the other side. Not where do I store it? Where do I put it? But why do I want to be reminded of that? Even if I forgot that note, if I'm not searching for it. So that's where the interconnectedness of good note-taking comes into play. Because when you then work on a problem, a question, a topic, the system itself points you to other notes that are connected. And if you have connected them well in the past, they will pop up in the right moment. In the first instant, where you rely on your brain alone, first of all, it's a lot of effort. And secondly, you only find what you're actively searching for. In the second instance, you're being reminded of all kinds of stuff. Most of what you've long forgotten. At least for me, because I tend to forget a lot.
那前面我觉得老师已经稍微的提到了一些卡片盒笔记法的概念，那这边可不可以请老师更完整的跟我们介绍一下这个卡片盒笔记法到底是什么，然后它是怎么样运作的？
It's one of these things that are very simple to do, but not that easy to put into practice. The basic idea is just that you reserve one note for one idea. We usually have complex thoughts in our head, and they're sometimes a bit messy. And having this hard rule, one note, one idea, forces you to break this complexity down and to clarify your thoughts. That's a good first step. Okay. The second is, when you worked with it a little bit, new notes are not just stored under certain categories, but you look for good connections. So you look for something you already have first, and then you write the new note in direct connection to an existing one. So you want to expand on a thought. You want to make a connection and make explicit what that connection is. So is the new note in addition? Is it just continuing something you already have? Or is it a contradiction? All these kinds of questions pop up when you try to connect explicitly notes with each other. And that's basically all the secret there is. You're always working on building something up and not just storing for retrieval.
Building is more important than storage.
Exactly. It's always the thought, what do you want to do with that kind of information? We often read something and think, oh, that's really interesting. I don't want to forget that. But the next question is, why? Why do I don't want to forget that? Because I want to do something with it. I want to integrate it into
the knowledge
my life. That's your personal project. That's your personal interest. And technology can't replicate that. And the system caters to this personalization of storage, note-taking, and information management. To make it work, you need to distinguish different kinds of notes. So the main part of the notes are what I call permanent notes, because they're meant to be stored permanently.
Yep.
So they can interconnect, build onto each other, and maybe in a very old note might contribute to a project you're currently working on. You also take these fleeting notes that are just capturing an idea, like on Apple Notes, where there's a very low threshold and where we realize after a time 90% of what we thought is a great idea isn't actually that much of a great idea. So they need to be filtered out. But we need to capture them because we don't know yet which of the 100 ideas we had are the great ones and which ones are the ones we should better check. Then we have literature notes. They always make sense to take because it usually takes a little bit of time to engage with the text enough to understand what's important, what's less important, how the argument is structured, how the author came to its conclusion. And then we have project notes. And project notes are basically everything you need to keep in mind about a project you're currently working on. They too have a limited shelf life. After the project is done, you can check them or you can archive them. So what you're left with are the permanent notes, which are very well thought through, where you put a lot of effort into writing them. Not all ideas went into that. And ideally, they build up a critical mass where the interconnectedness can spark new ideas and become like an idea generator. And that's what we are striving for, because it's not just about storing something to retrieve it later, but to make some magic happen in between these permanent notes. What I usually do when I, for example, have a literature note on the piece of Sam Altman, for example, and I highlighted or transferred a few bullet points of things I believe to be interesting for something I have, but I don't want to distract myself from reading it at the moment. I just note it down. And then in a first step, I look at the first piece of information and look in my permanent note section or in my project folder what I'm already working on this piece could contribute to. And only then write the new note on that, explaining how it contributes. And by that, you build up potential. And that potential could lead to output, give you momentum you can profit from.
Yeah, if you only started it, it's just useless. And if you just thinking, how it will benefit and how it will become a benefit in our future. So you will think, I need to remember this. I need to get all things done, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're basically always working on current and potential projects.
Yeah.
And build on that. If you can't connect it to anything of that, it's probably just one of these things that
just like gossip or something,
or it's interesting, but it's probably not for you. It's interesting to know, it's interesting to read, and there's a pleasure in reading interesting stuff. But if you want to put in the effort of writing a note, then it probably should contribute to something you're working on.
突然有一个好奇的问题是，有些说法会觉得说 AI 出现之后，其实就只要让 AI 帮你做笔记就好了。那现代人为什么还需要那么辛苦的学各种笔记方法？就是你会用 AI 来做笔记吗？
Good question. I use AI all the time. I have one hard rule. I never let AI write a permanent note for me.
Oh, why?
That is the one hard rule I have, because the moment I would AI write a permanent note, I'm not sure if I fully understand it in its depth. And I only want notes in my permanent note section that are truly, personally my own thought. And this is the one hard rule that allows me to use AI as freely as I want in everything else. Because I know in the end, I only build content upon my own thinking. Stuff I have considered, I have elaborated on, and that allows me to distinguish myself from everyone else. So if you bypass this step where you give account of your own thoughts in writing, you run risk of just bypassing the thought process at all. There are a lot of things AI is so much better than we are with our tiny brains. We don't hold that kind of information in our memory, but I believe there will be always, at least for a long time, the 10-20% AI can't replace. And if everyone has access to AI, the quality of these 10-20% are that make all the difference. The only way to keep the quality of your 10-20% human input
just to keep
high,
thinking,
is by training yourself on a daily basis in good quality thinking. And that, to me at least, means writing. because writing is the only thing that
you can
kind of tests you if you understand a thought fully.
那我想到另外一个很重要的输出情境是怎么在生活当中去实际的应用这些笔记的问题，因为像我们看了一些书之后呢，就会觉得很有启发，但是做了很多的笔记，有时候会发现实际真的能够用出来的状况很少。
So by emphasizing that it always should somehow contribute to something you're already working on, I don't mean you should only write notes that directly contribute to a project you already decided to do start from to finish. You build potential by adding ideas to potential future projects as well, or just ideas you feel could lead to something, and then see where it leads you. So if you later look into your Zettelkasten and see, oh, there's a question, a lot of notes have been built up, there's a cluster in the making, you can take it as a sign that you should probably turn that into a project. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about writing notes, accumulating them, letting it bubble up, and then deciding by looking at what you already have that this could be a project is when you then decide to start the project, you already have a lot of material to work with. If you start with a plan and a brainstorming session, you start from scratch. You then have to do the research, then have to gather ideas, discuss with colleagues, and you don't really know where it might lead you to. So just to give you a simple example. So I read something on Darwin and how his theory developed. It seems like an easy enough theory in evolution in hindsight, like many difficult things look easy in hindsight. But when you look at his biography, you notice that he kept a lot of notes on the biological variations for years. So he accumulated a lot of notes with observations about the variances between species, etc. And only much, much later, he came up with the theory of selection that formed the building block of evolution theory. It's basically a different form of Zettelkasten work, keeping note, because he probably thought, that's interesting, that could lead to something, but he didn't know in the beginning. He didn't start with a plan. I'm writing a theory of evolution.
Not that difficult. It's just a simple way.
It is extremely simple.
Yeah.
But it goes against how most people start a project. Most people think they need to come up with a fully formed plan first, or a research question that will be answered.
They want a good structure and good...
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's just good to storage, but you don't need to store them.
But the natural way of doing these things is sometimes, you start with that's curious. Let's follow up on that and see where it leads me.
好，那我们知道老师今天是跟知识卫星合作开了这门深刻艾伦斯的卡片盒笔记思考术，那可不可以跟我们分享一下这堂课主要会教些什么东西？然后它跟书的内容有什么不同？为什么大家会需要这个课程？
Well, the main difference are 7 years of experience. When I wrote the book, I haven't had feedback from readers yet, obviously.
Okay.
That's how it goes when you write a book. But after that, I coached people on the method. I taught it in different universities, different audiences. Yeah, it is my chance to answer all the questions that have accumulated over time. It is my chance to show practically how to set up your system, how to adjust it to your needs, and most importantly, how to integrate it into a digital setup. Because back then, 7 years ago, there weren't very good tools available. Nowadays, we have a much better choice of software, and I think it's worth keeping a few things in mind while you're setting it up in digital form, so you avoid a lot of mistakes I made. There's no need to do the same mistakes. So the course is your chance to kind of skip a lot of experiences I've made in the past and go straight ahead, setting it up for yourself and see what it does for you.
好，那今天非常感谢精彩的分享。那最后有没有什么特别的话想要对我们的观众说的呢？
So maybe let me add just one more thing, because for many who start with a system like this, the beginning feels a bit intimidating. Like it's a complex thing, a lot to understand.
It's so hard to feel great.
Yes, exactly. And then there are all these enthusiasts who share their Zettelkasten online and tell about their tens of thousands of notes they have accumulated, putting even more pressure on those who want to start. You can start with one note a day, or even less. Just do things a little bit differently. You don't have to reorganize everything you have. Just take it slowly, and if you think that's a thought worth keeping for a long time and build upon that, write that down, store it in your permanent note space, and see if it attracts a new idea. And you will be surprised how quickly these notes attract new ideas.
Just start it.
Just start, and then it builds up momentum on its own.
好，非常的有收获。那这集呢就先到这边。如果大家喜欢今天的影片，不要把它分享出去，或是可以点这个地方看其他相关影片。那么今天的这一期就到这边告一段落，我们就明晚再见喽，拜拜。